And welcome back to Who Will Win, everyone. Today's Who Will Win is not brought to you by anyone except myself. It is the monthly Who Would Win. We are continuing with the Akatsuki versus the Espada. And as I've been doing it, is basically one member of the Akatsuki versus all the Espada, basically comparing them in each video, and then tallying up who wins ultimately in the end. Right now, the Akatsuki are kind of behind, but we are getting into the stronger members of the group now. So, we are now on to Kisame. I want to be sure I got his name right. Hogashi. Point being, arguably the strongest of the seven swordsmen of the Mist Village. Kisame is a master in water jutsu, a master swordsman, has massive amounts of chakra, but his biggest skill ultimately lies with his use of his sword Samahata. I believe it is, which translates into shark skin. And Samahata is actually sentient in its own right. It consumes vast amounts of chakra. It can grow bigger and larger depending on how much it grows. Kisame can also fuse. There's no limit to how much it can consume, although it does prefer certain chakra over to others. And it is Kisame is capable of fusing with it, turning into this shark hybrid form, and allowing him to breathe underwater. Though I think he can breathe underwater regardless. And basically contributing all the power of Samahata to him in that singular body. And going up against the Akatsuki, the first Akatsuki member we always go with is number 9, be it Aaroniero. Aaroniero is number 9. He's basically, he is the weakest of the group, even though there's 10 of them, he is the weakest of the group. And his abilities pretty much lie in the fact that he's consumed God knows how many hollows over his time, and combine and taken all their abilities. Ultimately, though, it really wouldn't matter. Kisame could absorb all the abilities he would throw on him, because spiritual energy that is used or in Bleach is referenced in Naruto, because chakra is made up of physical and spiritual energy. So Samahata should be able to actually absorb things like Sero's spiritual attacks from the Espada. And being the weakest one, I do think Kisame would be able to ultimately take him down, adding on, things like water jutsu and things along those lines. Then we move on to Exterminator 8, Szayelaporro. Szayelaporro. Now, he'll be definitely a bit more of a challenge for Kisame to handle. It's basically just due to the fact that when you break it down, his abilities are a bit more abstract and obscure. Kisame would have trouble dealing with his ability to create a doll by involving him in his liquid-like tendrils, his wings, and the crushing of the organs. He could probably offset that to some degree with absorbing chakra and energy and their healing from it. Ultimately, they come down to, can Kisame start to really, tear into, shave off, bits of his giant chunks of his flesh, while also consuming vast amounts of his chakra. And on that regard, I will say it's more than likely yes, because he can also fuse with Samahata, which I would imagine would offset a little bit of the organ destruction technique. It would be a close match, but I do think he would ultimately win in a fight against Szayelaporro. I think, anyway. I skipped one. Then we have Zommari. I can't even begin to pronounce his last name because I don't A, have it in front of me, and B, it's a weird name. Now, he's known to be the fastest of the Espada in his base form. However, the real danger will come from his release, which, as you can see here, it takes the form of a weird pumpkin-esque shape, each with about 52 eyes. Those round things you see there are, these round things you see here are eyes. And anything those eyes touch or gaze upon, they put a seal on the object, and he has full control on the seal. And if it's a sentient individual, and if you hit their head, then he can fully control the individual. I'm sure Kisame would try to block with Samahata, but Samahata is sentient, so to some degree anyway. So that means Zommari would take control of Samahata, and that would greatly put Kisame at a disadvantage, and all he'd have to do is hit Kisame a couple times. Even if he doesn't hit his head, hits his arm, the arm is under his control, leg is under his control, hits his chest, I guess his body's under his control, he could probably command his heart to stop, and that'd be it. So unfortunately, Kisame could not take on Zommari. Plus, his sheer speed alone would probably be difficult, as he can move so fast as to create after images. He also probably could not stand. See, once we get these higher ranked individuals, it does become an issue because the power creep just goes in on there. Grimmjow, in terms of pure destruction, he's got techniques that don't involve his spiritual energy. Besides Sero's, he also has, just sheer claws. You see his body is involved with blades. He can fire basically like bolts from his elbow that can decimate giant stone pillars. His final technique is composed of spiritual energy, so that might be something Samahata could absorb. But truth be told, even if Kisame tries to envelop him or any of his opponents in water, they could probably blast it away with just their spiritual energy alone, if not a Sero or something like that. So I think he would lose in a straight-out fight to Grimmjow. Likewise, he would lose to Nnoitra as well, who not only has this, there's 4 in this picture, but he has 6 arms, all with massive size that move extremely fast and could just take off chunks of flesh in an instant. He's also has mass regeneration as well that can compensate for any lost limb he may suffer. Now, granted, that is predicated on him being able to use his spiritual energy to regenerate his limbs, but still, he can regenerate his limbs. And honestly, it'd be tough for Kisame to match this. Now, remember, Kisame is a ninja, so he probably has access to things like substitution, transformation, standard clone jutsu, but unfortunately, we don't really see Kisame use that. He's more of uses his sword and water release more than anything else. He does have a shark summoning, but frankly, those are just large animals that really wouldn't do anything against the iron skin of the Espada. So, and Nnoitra's alleged to have the hardest skin of any Espada. So, unfortunately, Nnoitra is another one who, quite frankly, would just beat Kisame. Ukihara is another one who can just fly out there. He can move so fast that he looks like he's in front of you, but then he grabs the side of your head, and you didn't even recognize he moved. He can literally throw an energy lance so powerful with the force of a nuclear blast. I don't think Samahata can absorb all of that energy at once, which means Kisame would basically be incinerated. He energy lances, super speed, high speed regeneration, can grow an arm back in an instant. Just give me 1 second. Instant. Unfortunately, he's just another individual that Kisame just ultimately isn't capable of handling at his full potential, which is this form right here. Halibel. Now, Halibel's a weird one, because really, Halibel's ability is just to manipulate massive amounts of water, which saves Kisame, honestly, the trouble of creating water. And if anything, he can just use his jutsu against her, and then she'd use it back. It'd be a lot back and forth here, but the key difference here is he still has Samahata in this fight, which any water she fires will probably be infused with spiritual energy. So he can absorb the spiritual energy out of the water to strengthen himself and Samahata. She fires a Sero, he can absorb the majority of that as well. They'll go back and forth. It's sword to sword. Difference is her sword is a typical sword in the sense that it cuts. His is a sword that shaves, and shaving just chunks of flesh off is horrifying. So it's actually pretty tough. I'd say she'd have the advantage in speed, though, but he'd probably have the advantage in longevity in the fight, ultimately because of his energy absorption with chakra and spiritual energy, as well as being able to heal wounds from that. So I actually think Kisame might take this victory. So I will give the victory ultimately to Kisame, but this one would be an actual close one. This would be one like I'd have to do a legitimate. I think I do have it down on my list somewhere for a legitimate fight. A legitimate who would win on, because these guys would be actually very close. Again, I think she has the advantage though in just pure speed, but in terms of everything else, it's very possible she would take him out. Barragan, there's no way Kisame can beat Barragan. I spoiled this in the last video, but there's no Akatsuki member, and I mean no Akatsuki member, that ultimately ended up being Barragan. That damn Respira is too powerful. It will literally just rot away anything. Like anything. Water evaporates. As long as something is capable of aging, it eventually will disappear, and therefore it can rot away and is affected by the Respira. And Kisame is no exception to this. Water does that. Samahata does that. Kisame itself, obviously. So unfortunately, Barragan is just not someone he would be able to take on. Stark. Now, you'd think because of the Sarahs that Kisame would have an advantage, but the fact is, Stark can spam so many Sarah at once that he is more than capable of overwhelming Kisame's ability to absorb his energy. Plus, again, sheer speed. The wolves, which are not Sarahs or energy, in fact, they're portions of his soul, are another big factor in this fight. It's just something that I feel like Kisame would just be overwhelmed ultimately. And then last but not least, we obviously have Yammy as Espada number 0 when he's fully released. And yeah, I mean, his sheer size alone would be a problem, but Kisame has taken on Killer B in the 8-tail state. The problem is a tail beast bomb isn't well designed for just blowing things away in terms of a wide range of just. Let me rephrase it this way. A tail beast bomb is a concentrated blast of chakra and it's basically fired like a bomb, but it goes distance before it actually attacks anyone or it hits anything and then explodes in a giant blast. A Sero can easily wipe away like widespread damage from the instant it fires. It's like the sheer force of it could wipe away the water that would imprison him. So he would be able to get out of there no problem. And quite frankly, the angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. So Kisame being able to try to absorb chakra doesn't really matter here as well. And spiritual energy in this case. Now, Yammy doesn't really have any straight special ability beyond that. He is kind of just pure rage, anger, and he's a bit of an adult. But he makes up for that for sheer power and just the ability to just keep going. So he's definitely something that Kisame would have difficulty dealing with. And the fact that he has legitimate arms, it is pretty fast, despite what you may think. And the Bala as well, he still is capable of using that. I think I got to go Yammy in this case, but ultimately it's a bit of a coin toss on this one. So Kisame ended up taking about 4 of the victories, which is better than most of his other comrades. But still, it's still not looking great for the Akatsuki. But don't worry, I'm got an ace in the hole coming for the next video. Because our next Akatsuki video, we will be looking at Itachi versus the Akatsuki. Or versus the Espada. Oh yeah, Itachi's going to come into play, and he should be able to even the playing field a little bit. But we'll see what happens in that fight. Until then, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, you watch review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. I'll do a review of it at some point. I use it. Who would win? Star Wars, Superhero, Magic, what if? Anything into the channel. Put that in the comments below as well. I'll get that at some point. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.